This video contains spoilers for Amphibia. If you want to watch this cartoon on your own accords, then please do so and come back to this video. Otherwise, thank you and enjoy.
I will admit that when I first started this channel in October 2020, I was really banking on my review of Banjo-Kazooie being my most disliked video, because I was slandering what basically amounts to be, in my opinion, the definitive incarnation of nostalgic bias. And then I saw the Owl House, or as I like to call the Oliver Hype House. Now, let me not mince words and tell you that for the longest time I have heard from a lot of people that this show was great, even to the point where people kept calling it the next gen Gravity Falls, so I checked out the show on Disney Plus and it gave me pause for thought. Really? This is the show that has Twitter buzzing? This is the next gen Gravity Falls? I felt played like a damn fiddle. The Owl House is a good example of why I should never trust internet hype and is by far one of the most overhyped cartoons I have ever seen. It wasn't all that bad though. The animation is great when it gets busy, I enjoy Ida as a character, Hootie is pretty funny, and yeah, that's about it. The Owl House is disappointing and bland, and at best is generic and uninspired. It's boring, unfunny, has several plot holes that actively go against its logic, and it poorly develops its characters to the point of lacking any personality whatsoever. I'm not going to sugarcoat further my disappointment, but I want to say that I don't really hate the Owl House. I think it has potential to be good. It just needs to try harder, and all it did was make me feel
transgressed and violated.
So, in my quest to find a Disney show that will convince me to come back to Disney Channel, here's something I hope you can forgive me for giving Owl House a bad score. Something that will hopefully turn me over. Welcome to Disney's Amphibia. Created by Matt Braley, Amphibia is an animated television series that aired on Disney Channel on June 17th, 2019. After the disappointment that was the Owl House, I was kinda hoping you guys would recommend me a Disney show that would finally convince me to give them another chance, and potentially come back to Disney Channel animation. So I checked out Amphibia on Disney Plus about a week later, and you know what? It was actually enjoyable. You heard me, I found Amphibia to be pretty good. Granted, the show has a couple of problems, but I will say this. It was definitely better than the Owl House. Now, before I start this review, I should say that I didn't see all of Amphibia. I saw Season 1, which is currently available on Disney Plus, with Season 2 set to come out sometime in May. Of course, I could pirate Season 2 online and watch it from there like any logical person, but out of fear of malware, I can't be asked. So the question is, what makes Amphibia, in my opinion, better than the Owl House? What did I like about it? And most importantly, is it enough to bring me back to Disney Channel? Before I go ahead, before you give this video a dislike just because I might give the show a lower score instead of a 9 or a 10, keep in mind that I'm the same man that thinks Banjo-Kazooie isn't a good game, so I have very subjective opinions. They may be wrong, but they're also valid. Apparently nobody got this memo when I reviewed the Owl House. And if you like what I'm doing, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of when I upload. Now prepare for an unforgettable review because this is Amphibia. So the show opens up in the town of Wortwood. We see a friendly frog leave a tavern and head out into the woods, until he sees a monster. The next day we meet Sprig Planter, a fellow frog in the Planter family comprised of grandfather Hop Hop and daughter Polly. Sprig heads out into the woods to prove he is responsible and finds the supposed monster, which turns out to be a teenage girl named Anne Boonjoy. Try saying that 5 times fast. As we watch the show, we learn how Anne got here. She stole a magic music box from a thrift store and so got transported to the world of Amphibia. She hopes to leave the town and find a way out, but the mountains are too strong in this time of year. So although that's set in stone, our hero now spends the rest of her life in the magical yet terrifyingly weird world of Amphibia, all while getting into some crazy shenanigans along the way. So Amphibia, much like Owl House, is yet another fish out of water tale where the character ends up in a new world definitely not like her own. Am I starting to notice a pattern? The story feels all too basic since it follows the same plot formula set up by Gravity Falls, and so it feels repetitive and uninspired. The show also has somewhat of a mystery, and I want to go over that later because it, I feel, is one of the flaws I have with the show. So is the show as riveting as everyone says? Well... Amphibia is surprisingly not that bad. I'll admit that I was expecting Amphibia to be pretty bad. It's another NBA V situation where I was expecting the show to be below average, but this time it was because of the praise surrounding it. After the disappointment that was the Owl House, I thought I was never going to trust hype ever again, but Amphibia managed to somehow get past the mark of being uninteresting. I found Amphibia to be surprisingly enjoyable. It's a show that I stare at not with this face, but with this one, taken in by what is happening and overall having a serviceable enjoyment. Oh yeah, and sometimes this one. Amphibia feels more like a show I would enjoy casually if nothing else. Just a show I can enjoy if there's nothing else I like on. Right, why don't I go over the good stuff? The animation is passable. While it's not too special, as I have said multiple times due to TV restrictions, it does what needs done. They don't shit the bed with its animation like the Owl House, but my favorite bit of animation from the show is this one scene where Ann and Hop Pop hallucinate after drinking each other's drinks. And the backgrounds I'm not really into, but some of the minor ones look pretty good to look at. One thing I will give them kudos for is the title card that appears in each episode. I like how it's made of wood, and I find it really creative. Also, can I just say that most of the frogs in the show look like rejected cousins of Pepe the meme frog? There's even what looks like a reference to Pepe in the show, but I could be wrong. The writing overall is solid. I like the interactions Ann and Sprig play off each other in the show. It feels lighthearted and harkens back to classic duo kind of shows. It's not laugh out loud funny, but there are a couple of quirky moments here and there. I did get a couple of smiles, however, I will say that. The show, however, is more carried by its characters and how they play off each other in these situations. Just like the Owl House, every episode is written with a character not listening to each other and then apologizing in the end. It's a basic setup for storytelling, but unlike Owl House, Amphibia doesn't have any plot holes that go against its logic because Amphibia doesn't really expand too much beyond the valley they live in other places next to the town of Warwood. And guess what? There's no millennial humor, so that's a thumbs up. Take that, Owl House. Though Anna does a dab here and there, so that's a thumbs down. But hey, I will give them kudos for referencing Bloodborne, Mario Kart, and Legend of Zelda. Kinda missed opportunity for them to make a Battletoads reference. Meh. A lot of people have said that this is the next-gen Gravity Falls, much like Owl House, which is something I also noted in my review of the Owl House, and it's something that's starting to chive my spuds. I want to stress that Amphibia, along with the Owl House, is nothing like Gravity Falls. Story setup aside, Gravity Falls had elements of a Monster of the Day show like Scooby-Doo. Amphibia does not. It rather is your typical 2 11-minute segments in 1 half-hour show. The show also has somewhat of a mystery to it, and this is where I start to find the show at its flaws. The mystery, I feel, is what's holding the show back from being an 8 for me. It isn't very riveting and not properly hinted at, and so it overall feels kinda unnecessary. The show wants to be a problem with the day comedy show, and so the mystery it carries doesn't really feel properly developed and arbitrary. I feel it's just there for obligatory reasons. Shit, I think Owl House handled the mystery aspect better with Edith's Curse because they're at least treated with enough acknowledgement and had some good build-up. And Amphibia is just like, oh yeah, that's a thing. The show does have some dark elements, but it's not that dark in my opinion. It has less dark elements as it has adventure and comedy elements. So do the characters carry the show? Yes, some of them. While several of the characters feel underdeveloped, especially the villain, a majority of the characters are pretty entertaining and often carry the show with their interactions. After all, the show I feel is carried by the adventures and not the mystery. I'm pretty sure these characters are developed more in Season 2, but given my current situation, I'm basically at a dead end. Anne Boomchoy is a young Thai girl from the human world. She's witty, spunky, and in my opinion is my favorite character in the show thanks to her interactions and overall charm. Sprig is the son of the Planter family. He's adventurous and is a brash older brother, and just like Anne, he often causes hijinks in the show. Polly is Sprig's baby sister. She's a young pollywog and she is very warlike and savage. She's not really all that special to me, she feels like she's just there. Hopadiah, or Hop Pop, is the Planter family grandpa. He's a grandpa and he does research on the mysterious music box, so that's something. He's probably the most developed character second to Anne, as we learn about his family history in one episode. There's also other characters like Mirror Toadstool, the aristocrat corrupt Mirror of Warwood, and is one of my favorite side characters in the show, not because of that voice, but because he's also entertaining, and he even redeems himself in the end. So that's a +1. He also has an assistant named Toadie, voiced by Fix-It Felix from Wreck-It Ralph. Miss Croaker, an elderly woman with a pet spider and has an evil boyfriend. Sylvia, Hop Pop's love interest. Maddie, the daughter of the town baker and Sprig's future wife, who just so happens to be cursed. Sloppy, a frog chef with utensil hands. Ivy, Sprig's tomboy friend. Loggle, the town woodsmith and ornery shopkeeper. Wally, the town hermit weirdo, who's another one of my favorite side characters thanks to his personality and voice. Albus Duckweed, a recurring salamander guy voiced by Pleatley from Lilo and Stitch. Sasha, one of Anne's human friends who got her into this mess and is working with the Toads. And the main antagonist, Captain Grime, the barbaric leader of the Toads of Toad Tower who has Sasha captured. More on her later. And looks like a miniature version of Gantu from Lilo and Stitch. His tad goal is to rid Amphibia of a so-called frog rebellion and bring order to the world, in exchange to help Sasha find a way home. Grime is kind of a weak villain. I like his voice, and while I won't call his motivation weak, it's not revealed who he's working with or he's independent, and I'm pretty sure it's touched on more in Season 2. So the characters are all fine, and all the voice acting is pretty top notch. The main highlight out of all these is Anne, voiced by the one and only Brenda Song, who I remember a lot from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and Sweet Life on Deck. She absolutely steals the show with her wit and is my favorite voice in the show all around.
You're safe now, little fella. What's wrong? Are you stung? We'll have to amputate. No! This caterpillar looks exactly like my cat Domino from back home. I love my cat more than anything in the world. She was irreplaceable. But now I found a replacement. Let's take her home with us.
My other favorite voices in the show go to Mayor Toadstool, voiced by Stephen Root, and Captain Grime, voiced by the one and only Troy Baker. Stephen Root's Toadstool has a hillbilly accent I can't get enough of, and come on, it's Troy Baker. Who would honestly let down Troy Baker as Captain Grime?
So glad you could join me, Planter. I'll give it to you straight. I want you to lose tomorrow's trial.
Well, yeah, I figured.
No, you dimwit. Lose on purpose. In return, I'll give you a new vegetable stand. Heck, I'll put it in the center of the market, tax-free. You'll make tons of money.
That's, hard to say no to.
Well, then, don't.
Toads of Toad Tower, today was a great victory. If it weren't for your bravery, the fortress would be lost. You're all heroes!
So overall, Amphibia is surprisingly enjoyable and better than the Owl House. Despite its broken mystery, hit-and-miss jokes, and repetitive story, I think the show holds strong with its entertaining characters, quirky nature, clever writing, and is overall a lot better to watch. Good job, Amphibia. Now let's set off to the finale. So around episode 11, we are introduced to the antagonist, Captain Grime, the mighty general of the Toads of Toad Tower, who holds Anne's friend Sasha hostage. After Sasha saves the tower from giant birds, Grime promises Sasha a way home if she helps them with their problem. A plot that goes nowhere after this episode, which kinda sucks, honestly. So after a few episodes of waiting and after being awarded Frog of the Year, Anne and her friends are taken to a feast by the Toads. The final episode also gives us more insight into Anne's life in the human world on her birthday before she stole the music box that sent her to Amphibia. We learned vaguely throughout the show that Sasha made Anne steal the music box as a dare, and so after hanging out with Sasha in her beautiful room, Sasha reveals that the Toads are trying to execute the one causing all the rebellions throughout Amphibia. Remember that one episode where Hop Up was running for town mayor? Well, as it turns out, he's the guy inspiring rebellions throughout Amphibia, and so the Toads are out to execute him, setting up the feast as a trap. So Anne escapes the tower but are then caught by the Toads. Sasha takes the frogs up to the top of the tower to execute them, but thankfully after Sprig gives a passionate speech, Anne settles this the Toad-fashioned way. So Anne challenges Sasha to a good old-fashioned duel. If she wins, her friends go, and if she loses, then Hop Hop's gonna croak. Anne fights Sasha for a bit and even gets the upper hand on her. But I guess that was all for nothing as Grime prepares to kill Hop Hop. Suddenly, the tower explodes thanks to the work of our good old friend Wally. Sasha falls, but thankfully Anne comes in to save her, until she lets go and falls, but thankfully she's saved by Grime. Just as the frogs escape thanks to the help of Toadstool, the Toads leave the tower and take an unconscious Sasha, leaving Anne to weep with her friends. And so, the show ends with all the frogs going back to Wordwood, thus bringing about the end of Part 1. The end. Yeah, I enjoyed Amphibia. It's not a terrifyingly great show I can get invested in like Infinity Train or an overhyped Slack job like The Owl House. Oops, did I say that out loud? Amphibia overall is just a casual show I can sit back, relax, and watch if there's nothing else for me to enjoy. While its mystery feels arbitrary, some of the characters are underdeveloped, the story setup is repetitive, and some of the jokes don't land, Amphibia gets a pass thanks to its adventurous tone, entertaining and carrying characters, and is overall no more than 2 times enjoyable than Owl House. But is it enough to bring me back to Disney Channel? Honestly, no. While I do think Amphibia is better than the Owl House, it's missing a special something that can make me love it or even enjoy it even more. It's missing an identity. Amphibia feels so basic since it follows the Mystery World formula set up by Gravity Falls, and it feels like it has no soul. It feels almost too basic for my taste. To be fair, Infinity Train had a similar setup to Gravity Falls, but at least it had its own identity to make it stand out. Infinity Train's identity in that regard was its tendencies to tell a gripping, almost realistically mature story and show some fucked up shit that probably wouldn't fly on any other kids network. Amphibia has almost nothing special, but you know what? I would definitely take it over the Owl House. I'm pretty sure Season 2 of Amphibia is better than Season 1, but given the current situation I'm in, it's gonna be a while. Hopefully I will review Amphibia Season 2 once it comes to Disney+, but for right now, I'll leave it at that. I did hear there's a Season 3 coming sometime in summer 2021, but for right now, I'm gonna give Amphibia Season 1 a salamander out of a frog. Or in other words, a solid yet certainly strong 7 out of 10. Eat your heart out, Owl House.